In this one, we're going to have a look at versioning. It's very rare in the world of software development where you would build something and then that is it. You don't add any enhancements, any changes, new features or bug fixes. And so in order to track those, in order to know which version that you are working with, then you can create a release and tag it with a version number. And that's exactly what we're going to do with this one. And we'll look at semantic versioning as well. Choose high definition for the best viewing experience, and if you'd like to join a growing group of software developers and take your skills to a new level, all you need to do is subscribe, click the little notification icon, and welcome. Versioning is relatively straightforward. All we need to do is create a release and give it a version number, and we can do all that in GitHub in our repo. So in the performance counter repo, I go over to this bit here. You should see 3 bits at the top here. The branch that you're on, how many branches you have, and then it'll have this tags. So click on that, and then at the top it'll have tags and releases. If we just click on those, we can see we have neither. But what we can do is create a new release, and then it will ask you to choose a tag. We don't have any tags yet. Over on the right hand side here, you should see this bit here. It's a common practice to prefix your version names with the letter V, and so it gives you some ideas on how to tag this. As far as giving it a version number, we're going to call this the first major release. So we'll call this version V 1.0.0. Okay, so this is semantic versioning. So basically, on the left hand side you have major releases, and so if you're creating something and you introduce breaking changes in the functionality, then it would be the best idea to give that a major release, as well as when you actually first release it. Then in the middle you have minor releases, so any improvements, any new bits of functionality, then you can say that is a minor release. And then patches on the right hand side, and patches are basically just fixes, and so that's what that should be used for. But I'm happy with version 1 for this. I'm happy with how my performance counter works, and so we're going to create tag v 1.0.0. Release title, again I'm just going to stick with the version number, but you could call this first major release or anything like that. And then describe this release. This is where I tend to do something like that, and so I'll just call this first major release here. Okay, and so I'm happy with that. We don't want to point this out. There's this box here. This is a pre-release, so if it's not production ready, say if it's version 0.0.1, then you can click this here to say this is like I say, not production ready, this is not stable, but we're happy with what we have here, so we're just going to publish this release. Okay, great, so you've now created your very first release. Let me just explain some of these other things which you see here. So as you can see, we've given it the tag v 1.0.0, but also this is our git commit, which this release is based off, and then here you have the source code. So these are the files in the exact state as when this release was created, and this release will always just refer to these files in this state. I can now go ahead and request a specific version in my use perf counter demo. So here where we were just saying get us the main branch, now we can say we want a specific version. So another thing to note here is we don't need to prefix it with a V, we just say version 1.0, so I don't need to add on the other 0. This should be good enough. Let's go over to Composer and say Composer update. Now nothing will actually happen here because I'm using the exact same files as what I've already got in the project, but at least now we've changed it to version 1, and as you can see the little annotation which has appeared there, we have version 1 in our project. Let's go back to our performance counter source code, our repository, and actually change this so we can push it and create a version 1.1. So I'm going to make it really obvious that that's what I've done by just putting a little comment here at the bottom of the performance counter.php file, and I'm just going to say change for version 1.1. So we have a change to performance counter, git add all and git commit. So I'm just saying example change for versioning demo v1.1. So then I'll know what I'm looking for when I look for commits and look for comments, etc. Let's hit go, and then if we push this up, okay, that's gone away to GitHub. Let's go back to GitHub now and bump the version. So back in GitHub in performance counter, as you can see, my change is there, example change for version demo v1.1. Let's go and create another tag. So I'll click on releases and then draft a new release. Okay, so choose tag. So this time I'm going to go with v1.1.0. Create new tag v1.1.0. Important thing which I don't think I told you last time is I'm basing this version off of the main branch in its current state. So that's what this means here, target main. So we're looking at the main branch as it stands. That is what this version is going to be built off. Okay, so v1.1.0 is the name I'm going to give to this. And here, just because I can't think of anything better to say, we'll also say version 1.1. Okay, and then we'll publish the release. And here we have it. Again, it's based off of this commit, and these are the files which represent the state of the main branch in its current state. And so for version 1.1.0, these files will always be the same. Back in our demo project where we required in Clarke Tech Performance Counter, our version is actually hard-coded to version 1, which means if I went to say composer update, it wouldn't actually bring me version 1.1, would be stuck with the version we've got, which is 1.0. And if we go and look in the vendor files, so Clarke Tech Performance Counter, source performance counter, all the way to the bottom, as you can see, that change which I made to the code isn't there. And so there are a number of ways in which you can require it in. You can require a specific version, for example 1.1, or you can write a constraint. And so I'm going to write one of those. The one I'm going to use is this. You'll see this maybe quite commonly. So what this means is it won't go above that, but anything to the right of that, it can go above. So for example, we won't go to version 2, but we can go to version 1. Whatever, which means that version 1.1 will be pulled in if I go and run composer update, because it'll go and get the highest, most relevant version. So composer update, and as you can see, it's downloaded version 1.1.0. If we go back to our performance counter file, down at the bottom, as you can see, our change has been dragged in there now. Versions and versioning can seem like quite a complex subject at first, but once you have a read through the Composer documentation on versioning, which isn't really that long, then it all starts to make a lot more sense. If you've enjoyed this video and you'd like YouTube to show you more of my content, all you need to do is subscribe and click the notification icon. And also, if you're interested in my full-length courses, then make sure you check out my site at garyclarke.tech. I'll leave a link on the screen and in the description.